Hello everybody, and apologies first of all for the 3-day delay that we've had here between updates. Reason for this, once I finished on Friday, I had a lot of sort of personal stuff to deal with after the nursery, so I didn't really have a chance to sit down and do it. During the weekend I was fairly under the weather. This carried through onto Monday, all details of which can be seen within the reflection section of my folder if you need to see that at all. Basically there's a bug going around the nursery. I believe I've caught it. I've just only fully recovered today, and even still I'm feeling a bit iffy. I haven't been sick. If you are sick with this bug, you have to stay off from the nursery for 48 hours. Fortunately, I've not managed to do that, but other members of staff seem to be picking up similar symptoms, I believe is the word to use here. So I will keep you posted on that, but apologies once again. Not a lot was missed. Day 5. Everything pretty standard. One of the children picked Friday out from a list of words. We'll call her Child L2. She was able to stand up, go over to the board, pick out Friday. The reason she knew it began with the letter F. So that was really interesting to see. It was good to know that the early signs of reading are starting, since I'm focusing on language development. Free play was supervised by me. I set up IT. This is when I got to set things up. So I had to set up a room based on my preferences, my specifications. Everything was down to me. I set up the quiet room. It seemed to be the easiest one to do. Basically all I did was I put the computer on for CBeebies, I put out dress up toys, and I also put out trains so that you could see them build the train tracks and stuff. It was really good. It was good to see them getting into the roleplay with the dress up box, so that was pretty cool. A lot of good language being used there. A lot of like, I'm a fireman, I have to go and put out the fires quickly, you have to phone 999, all of that sort of stuff, you know. Just general open dialogue with the children about this. It was good to gauge their level of understanding. Okie dokie. Yes, one of the children made a piece of art from the CBeebies website, and I don't think I have it anymore. I believe she gave it to me so that I could use it in my folder, but I think another child, I think she only had a couple of copies and she needed it back, so unfortunately I don't have that anymore. But that was actually really interesting to see. Fear not, it's not the end of the world. I can always get my child to do another one for me if the time comes. But that was a shame to have lost that, I must say. I'll have a scout around the nursery tomorrow to see if it's still there. I kind of forgot about that, to be honest. It gets pretty hectic in there sometimes. But that was good. Educational TV remains ever popular on the CBeebies website. A lot of them like to sit and watch stuff. I couldn't name offhand any of the programs right now, but basically it has a link to iPlayer, and it has educational TV. You know, just your basic counting, your basic drawing of letters in the sky sort of thing. Really good stuff. They were imitating a lot of the things that were happening. They were imitating the noises being made. Always good to see, especially in the younger children. I read stories to a couple of the kids. I thought that was pretty interesting. But what I did try was I gave them the book and I was like, you tell me the story. Now, knowing fine well that they couldn't read, like that was not the purpose of this exercise. I was wanting to see what they could make from the stories, whether they've heard them before or not, just to see what their sort of level of understanding was. It was actually really good fun. The children seemed to enjoy it, the ones that I did it with anyway. Child F, as we'll call her, was really into it, and she wouldn't actually let me read the story to her afterwards. She was just like, no, this is what happened. So I didn't question it. I was just like, okay, I'm cool with that. You want to tell me what's happening? It was a story about Elmer, the elephant, doing something crazy in the jungle. It was really interesting to see what she picked up from the picture. Then she was counting the animals that were there. She was like, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 birds. Now bear in mind, minimal input from me. I was just an audience. I was just a quality audience, questioning here and there, but I never asked her how many birds or anything there were. She was just doing that off her own back. Good to see that they're taking a good step towards independent learning, challenging herself. So there was story / quiet time, and because of a lack of staff, the nursery asked me if I would like to take hold of the green group for the afternoon and just basically have them to myself and, you know, do an activity with them. Nothing too difficult, of course, just you just something basic. So what I did was, after looking at those magnetic polydrons that I'd mentioned before, I got them all to sort of just jump in and do that. I was like, okay, show me what you can build me. I want to see what you can do, I want to see what you can make, and I want you to, I just want to watch. So that was really good. I have a good couple of pictures of that in the folder as well, if you would like to see it. I won't be able to put them up in this video, unfortunately. The format in which I record this makes it very difficult to edit, so everything's kind of just off the cuff. But upon request, I can definitely show you those. So that was really good. And then it was free play and snack at the end of the day. So it was a kind of a whistle stop tour, shall we say, of the Friday. Now yesterday was when things were starting to get a bit crazy. This was Monday. Day 6 of placement, right in there, right down the front. Circle time and register. Very, very difficult today. Because I was unwell, because I had this really just banging sore head, and I take migraine, so I just assumed you have a migraine, but just power through, you'll be fine. But I think I have contracted the bug that the children are experiencing right now. Anywho, once I got there, it hit me like a ton of bricks right away. The staff were questioning, like, you okay and stuff. I was like, yeah, no, I'll be fine. But really, I wasn't fine at all. It was really pretty intense. But we struggled on. Basically, this meant that a lot of the stuff that I wanted to do was kind of put on hold, because I know that I wouldn't have been able to comment on it. I wouldn't have been able to make good observation. Sorry, not good observation. I wouldn't have been able to make comment. I wouldn't have been able to organise anything. So I kind of just took a step back for the day and observed. Now, was that a good use of my time? It wasn't the best use of my time, but given the situation, it was the ideal use of my time, because anything else would have just been wasted, in my opinion. So I noticed that during register, it's just the usual circle time register every morning. Child L, who I've mentioned a few times before, the child who says gold and etc., the one who I've been looking at for language, is becoming quite I wouldn't say a problem, but he's starting to show signs of misbehaving quite a lot. He kind of just wanders around and does as he pleases unless someone gives him constant attention. Now, whether that's an attention thing, I'm going to fix the white balance here, sorry, first of all. Whether that's just an attention thing, I'm not sure. I can't comment on that completely, but he does seem completely distracted a lot of the time. And whenever he talks about things, it's completely off topic. We were discussing St. Patrick's Day because it was that yesterday, and the things that we were talking about was just talking about Christmas and things like that, and I was kind of just a bit bewildered, as well as the staff. We were kind of wondering where it was coming from, but I guess he just likes to talk, maybe. We'll see how that progresses. Everyone, we were talking about St. Patrick's Day the last time. The parents were asked to contribute resources. When it came to Monday, though, there wasn't really a lot of parental input. Now, that's not unexpected. Parents have lives. Parents are busy, they have things to do, but I kind of expected more to come from the parents, but a few things did. We did get an Irish flag from one parent. We got a couple of bits and bobs from the others. Nothing too spectacular or useful, but I think it was good. There was a good level of engagement. I just feel like it could have been more from the parents, but never mind. We don't. There's not much to say about that. They did what they could, and it was good. And the children enjoyed hearing about St. Patrick's Day as a whole. The rest of circle time was really just spent talking about St. Patrick's Day because that was the theme for the day. We done the weather, we done what day of the week it is, usual. Went on to free play, and I had my activity planned. This wasn't really an activity, this is more of an off-the-cuff thing. There is no real record of it in my folder, as I can't speak English. There is no real record of it in my folder as opposed to the daily reflection that I've done in there where I mention it, but basically the staff were talking about getting Irish music so the kids could dance along. I kind of just took it upon myself. I was like, I want to build a relationship here, why don't I take care of that? And they let me do it. So over the weekend I managed to source some Irish music, just Irish dancing music, nothing too spectacular, nothing with words, just sort of Riverdance, Michael Flatley, that sort of thing, just so that they could have a little dance, and it proved pretty popular. made quite a note on the folder of how well it went. The children were really engaged. There were children coming and going, mostly girls, I will admit, but you know, they were coming and going in the physical area and just dancing along to music, and that was great. It was good to see that they were kind of just into it. You know, it was good to know that something that I had prepared went off that well. Let's see. In passing, I noticed that when passing through the IT area, one of the children, the older children, was showing one of the younger children to how to use the PC, how to use the mouse, how to use the right click and left click, what they both do. Thought that was brilliant. Some peer learning going on there, peer interaction, really good actually. It was nice to see the older ones taking the younger ones underneath their wing, especially in such a confined space in the nursery. To know that the two age groups are getting along is a big relief. If there was conflict there, it might be a very, very difficult environment in which to work and in which to play, definitely. So that was nice to see. I have been written in here quite a few times, feeling ill. Clearly the bulk of my notes was dedicated to this fact. Can you get some white balance in here? There we go. I noticed that the illness was spreading around the children. A few children off, a couple of members of staff saying that their family were getting ill, so that's not good news. But then again, there's not really a lot we can do, so I need to fix there. Yeah, that's better. Not a lot we can do. It just kind of has to run its course. I think with the nursery manager has, what's the word I want to use? Notified the doctors in the area, just kind of get a bit of advice, and she says, well, the doctor seems to think that's just a passing bug, and we just kind of have to rough it out. Any children that are sick need to stay away for 48 hours, keep it from spreading. Hopefully it dies away soon. The 4 capacities from the Curriculum for Excellence: successful learners, confident individuals, responsible citizens, and effective contributors. Sorry, throwing my worth as a teacher there. Yeah, the 4 capacities were up on the walls. I noticed that yesterday. And they're written out in normal language, but then they're written out in child-friendly language. So it's like, I can, instead of effective contributors, it says, I can put my point across in a way in which everyone can understand. You know, something like that, something that just breaks it down to a childlike level so that they can understand what they're learning about. So I thought that was interesting. The magnetic polydrons that I used for my pseudo lesson, shall we say, they remained a hit. Children were using them a lot. It was nice to see some of the interesting models that were being built by that. Again, pictures in the folder. There was a young child making models who was only 2. We'll call her Child A. She's 2 years old, and although she didn't quite get the concept of making them into 3D shapes, she was making some pretty interesting patterns with the squares. Now, there's only squares and triangles, so she was clicking them all together, but it was in a structure. You know, it was like an actual grid by the end of it, and it was almost colour coordinated. Now, whether that was coincidence or not, I'm not sure. I went and asked her, and she was like, I'm just making squares, so that was as much I was getting out of her. She's not a big talker. But I thought that was really interesting to see the ways in which she was interacting with this resource, and pretty taken aback, being honest with you. Some pretty interesting stuff going on there. The nursery was incredibly hot. That was something I noticed, so I questioned about that. I was like, so it gets pretty hot in here, what kind of gets done to maintain the temperature levels? Turns out that there's an air conditioning unit built in. I thought that was pretty cool. For the room being the size that it is, there's huge in the roof big aircon systems that are basically a necessity. The nursery can get pretty warm. You're talking 40 children and quite a few members of staff, all piled in this one room for the majority of the time. So getting them outside and also getting that air conditioning on is borderline essential because it's very, very warm. What I did notice was, I say a lot, I've noticed that, I noticed that there was kind of the atmosphere in the nursery, it was very loud. Now maybe I was just noticing that a little bit more yesterday because of my headache, because I wasn't feeling so great, but the way that I described it in my notes here is it was a kind of a controlled chaos. Now, before you start accusing me of saying that the nursery is chaotic and manic and terrible, no, this is not what I mean by this. What I mean is the children have a lot of free roam. they can do what they like. They are free to do what they like. They can take the risks themselves. Obviously, everything is risk assessed by the members of staff, sort of on the fly. It's kind of constant risk assessment in the nursery. But they're allowed to climb on things when they're outside. You know, they're allowed to you know, if they're throwing something against the wall and if we say the magnets, say the magnetic polydrawn things, they throw it against the wall and then it crashes and then it breaks, and it's like explaining why it breaks. They're allowed to do these things within reason, of course, but they're allowed to do it in such a way that they're always learning. So the noise is really high, but that's not a problem for the nursery staff. They're okay with the noise being high because a lot of the time it's constructive. They need to. What they do is they kind of put a cap on it somewhere that's okay with the children. So yes, it can be noisy. Yes, things can be getting kind of broken. Things can be getting thrown around. Things can be, you know, just constant interaction between them and their peers and interaction between them and the resources all the time. That is fine, but sharing between people is made a necessity. If you have someone for too long, oh, he's trying to take it off of me, how long have you had that? I've had it all day. Well, maybe you should share with them. That's pushed a lot. You're not allowed to run indoors. Running is for outside. The children seem to have a sort of respect for that. They know their boundaries and they know their limits. Occasionally they'll try to push them. Some of the what shall we say, less well behaved children will try and push that a little bit, but none to the point where you would say that there's a behaviour issue. You know, there's never any bad children, only bad parents, I always say. But there's not any badly behaved children to the point where you would purposely pick them out of the crowd and say you're being a little terror sort of thing. So I think that's really interesting. That's 2 placements in a row now I've had where behaviour hasn't really been an issue. Now, a lot of people would maybe say that's to question my own practice, but after fully observing the sort of level of control that I have over the children, I don't think that's the case. And I think that's a respect thing, and it's really good to see that that's been demonstrated. Now, that was a big ramble, wasn't it? Let's see what else we have. Yesterday the children seemed to sense that I was unwell, which was kind of strange to see. They avoided me a little bit more, which was a sort of double-edged sword, but as we'll see when I get on to today's reflection, it wasn't really a problem. It was more to do with the fact that they noticed that I was unwell, but today when I was better they were back to they're back to surrounding me, shall we say. Let's see. To reflect on how the illness was sort of impacting, because I think that was a good thing to notice, is that it's very, very difficult to maintain a level of professionalism when you feel really, really unwell. What do I mean by this? Well, basically, when you feel as bad as that, and you have like 100 children surrounding you, sort of shouting at you, shouting in your ear, and even when they back off, just having that constant buzz at the side of your head, knowing that you're responsible, you have to be the responsible adult. If they get unwell, you need to be there for them. It's not you. You take your own sort of health out of the question to deal with everyone else's. It's really hard to do that. I found it was hard to show an interest in what the children were doing, and I know that sounds really selfish and really horrible, but when you feel as bad as that, and the children have also felt as bad as that, the ones who have been unwell, when you feel that ill and people are coming with you, that the last thing you want to do is the last thing you want is to hear a child singing in your ear, or you don't really want to see this picture that they've drawn, and it's really horrible trying to keep that up. Now, I would like to go on record as saying that I feel like I've done a good job here. I addressed every child that came to me. I still kept up that level of professionalism, but it's really, really hard to work that way, and that's something I'll probably need to work on for the future, just maintaining that level of professionalism at all times, regardless of my own feelings. So, that was a thing. The lunchtime happened, everything was fine, the children were fairly settled for a lunchtime, I noticed, which was really good. Maybe that's because I was noticing the noise levels being higher earlier on, but during lunch they were fairly calm, fairly collected, everyone was eating their lunch. Maybe it was just a really busy day for them and they were all hungry, I don't know, but that was nice to see. the story slash quiet time, they were read. We're going on a bear hunt. Now that's really good. What I noticed from my studies and also from just observation yesterday is that we're going on a bear hunt is really good for teaching positional language, sort of mathematical concepts. So they can't go over it, they can't go under it, they have to go through it. So it's teaching them over and under and through, things like that. I thought was really good. And that was basically the end of the day. Other things happened, but nothing really noteworthy. Now we can get on to today, finally. I'll try and not make this any longer. I'll try and just stick to the 30-minute mark because I'm very tired now. I arrived as usual, register, hello song, weather, everything like that was fine. Contrary to what I was saying yesterday, well, for yesterday, today, a lot more parents brought in St. Patrick's Day stuff, which I thought was quite funny. It was like, oh, well, it was yesterday, but they did bring things in. So it's good. Maybe this is going to be a week-long thing that we just keep referring back to. If so, I'm fine with that. It's good to get a bit of culture into the nursery as well, just sort of seeing from an outside perspective. One of the parents had made a fact sheet about Ireland, about St. Patrick's Day, which I thought was really good, saying that it was the celebration of Christianity making its way over to Ireland, looking at shamrocks, their significance, why it's celebrated, just all kinds of things. Irish produce was another thing they were showing, exports and imports, and explaining that this is they had a picture of one of the parents had put Guinness on there, and the nursery staff were a bit like, now what's this? And it's like, it's Guinness, and they were like, do you know what that is? It's like, I think somebody said it was dirty beer, and I was like, bang on, that's good to know that that's being enforced. The children were aware that it was an adult's drink sort of thing, so that was good to know, that they have an awareness of that. We're just sort of experimenting with language again in circle time, as we often do. We're asking the children what they thought things were. One of the funniest ones that I feel like I must mention here, just to sort of lighten up the mood a bit, is that when asked about leprechauns, he says, what do you think leprechauns are like? What do you think they look like? I think one of the children said it's a St. Patrick's elf. So there you go. And the thing is, she's not wrong, you know. Elves at Christmas are small and bearded and, you know, magical, so that was kind of interesting to see that link being made. Moved on to free play, where essentially I kind of just went around and just mucked in with the children. You know, if they were building stuff, I was getting down there, I was asking what they were building, just open dialogue, getting to know the children, the usual. As I've been there over a week now, but it's still good to maintain that personal relationship with them, as well as a professional relationship when it's group time, which we will move. Oh no, not yet. The baking and cutting area became popular. Now, what I mean by that is, in the quiet room there was a station set up by another girl she's working for the nursery 3 days a week, but she's also doing a course as well in, I think, childcare. So she's doing observations and stuff as well. So it's interesting to have an open dialogue with her about just university life and stuff. It's good to have someone like that on board, so that I can, you know, we can bounce back ideas off each other. But she had built up an area in the free play room of a baking stall, so it was just a kitchen area originally, and it had a till there. Whether the till was there on purpose, I'm not sure. I didn't have much of a chance to speak to the girl, but what eventually happened was, brace yourselves, the children all gathered around this one stall, and they were all baking cakes, quote unquote, imaginary cakes of course, and then they were taking bits of paper, tearing it up and putting it into boxes, and they were saying these are sweeties. And then it clicked with one of the older kids, I want to say child P, maybe, I can't remember exactly who it is, but they started running a shop, and just because the till was there, you know, so they were like, the muffins are going to cost this much. Now, we're not going to pretend that this is super nursery and everything's great. I mean, they don't really have a good concept of cost. So like sweeties were like 500 pence or something like that. So they weren't using real language, real currency. I know what I'm trying to say here. I'm sorry, guys. I'm struggling a bit here. they weren't using like the real language for currency. They weren't saying like, oh, it's maybe 60 pence for a muffin, like it would be some places. Nothing like that. They were just saying, oh, this is 500 pence, and the other kids were getting involved. So nothing was ever the same price, like per se. You know, they weren't marking it up, but I thought it was really interesting that they just off their own backs. You know, no adult, no pushing, no adult interaction at all. Just built this shop, and they were going around to the adults saying, you want to buy a sweetie at 600 pence, and just things like that. I thought that was brilliant. It's brand new. It's great to see that they can just do that off their own back. It's some really good play going on there. I believe I have a picture of the area in my folder as well, just the way that it was set up and such. But yeah, that really resonated well with me. I think that's great to see, you know. They were really getting involved. So that was good. Unfortunately, I can't take credit for that. That was someone else's idea, but it was really interesting to watch over. Something that I noticed that I might want to incorporate into future activities that I plan for the children, based on the successes. I'm covering the microphone. Based on the successes / failures of today's, is that the Disney film Frozen is really popular in the nursery right now. There's Frozen lunch boxes going around. Some of the kids are singing, you know, let it go, let it go, let it go, you know, all day. They're singing this song. So I'm going to try and incorporate that in some way. This is my way of sort of adhering to the child-centeredness of the Curriculum for Excellence while I'm there. You know, the children are leading the learning, so if I can make some form of activity, you know, even if it's something pretty simple, such as who's this character, what does he or she say, just anything that's going to boost language a little bit, you know. I want to get involved with that. Maybe as a free play activity, I think would probably be best, because doing it in group time is maybe not fair, because I know that not all of the kids will have seen the film, but Disney is a really popular pastime for basically every child that I have spoken to in the nursery. Every one of them's either talked about Cinderella or one of the princesses, or when it's the boys, they're talking about The Lion King, they're talking about The Incredibles, Toy Story. So it's great, it's amazing to see, it's amazing to see how much of an influence Disney have on their childhood. Now, as someone who grew up in the 1990s as well, Disney has been and remains to be a huge part of my life as well, so having that kind of common ground with the children might actually be useful. That might be something that I'm wanting to look into, perhaps later on at my university experience, and kind of experiment a bit with that. But what I plan to do is, in the future of this placement here, I will definitely be using a sort of Disney themed activity at some point, in which I can try and maybe promote language development, get something out of that common ground, because I think that's going to be key to my practice in the future, is finding that level of interaction with the children. That's at that level of, I've already said common ground 50 times, but I don't just say it once more. That level of common ground with the children. Okay, I've written in here, kids be crazy. Not really too sure what that means. I think that was to do with when we were outside in the playground, one of the children, a group of the children, were tying up my legs with a bandage, not because I was unwell, but they were trying to, I don't know if they were copying Gulliver's Travels or not, but they were basically trying to take me down because I'm a giant. Now, originally I kind of thought, this is not a good idea, let's back them off and let's get them to go away, but then I thought, you know, maybe this is okay, maybe there's learning to be had here. So I just kind of let them go with it. The reason for this is because they were learning from their mistakes every time. They were kind of teaching themselves. They first of all wrapped it around me, so then I stepped forward, and that was me. I broke free, and that was the end of it. So they were like, oh no, we'll have to try again. So they came again, and then they tied it around one of my legs and then let the other leg free, and I was like, oh, but look, and then so this went on for a while until eventually they kind of done a sort of figure of 8 with this blanket and then held it tight. So both of them were holding on to the back of it, and then one was grabbing on to my arm. So I was trying to walk like this as well, and eventually they got it to the point where I could walk. So, you know, that was it. Mission accomplished. They managed to do what they wanted to do. And that's the kind of thing that if you want to look at a completely superficial level, yeah, maybe it's not the most learning rich activity, but it's teaching them about tying knots, it's teaching them it's just basic motor skills. Why is that stopping me from moving? What are the properties needed for my legs to move? What are you cutting off? The joints and all things like that, and just speaking to them about that as it was going on, and they were eating it up. So I mean, there you go. Just learning to be had everywhere in the nursery. It's a very learning rich environment. So finally, on to the crux of the day. I know I've hit the 30-minute mark, but I need to talk about this now. It was the activity that I had planned. Now, a full lesson plan, I just did it in the style of a lesson plan that I would do in the classroom, mostly because I did make references to the Curriculum for Excellence, and I thought this would fit well in here. The nursery themselves have an observation sheet which I will pick up tomorrow and sort of compare the two. Maybe I'll experiment with both. It's different levels of assessment. It'd be good to see both. But using this lesson plan, it was really interesting. What the lesson was, I got a group to myself. So I set up a bunch of Lego blocks just in the middle of a table, and I had three or four, I can't remember exactly how many, 3 or 4 different starting blocks. So basically it was just like a big square of Lego, just like Lego, how would you say this, like it was like a stand in which they could put their Lego pieces on. So I got them to go into pairs. They all paired up fine, there was no problems with that. I didn't let them pair up themselves, I just paired them, and I tend to find they don't argue as much in nursery, like I'm not working with them sort of thing. It's not like that. So I paired them up, not in any particular way, just in a random order, and I put a vote to them. Now unfortunately there were, I think, 5 girls and 1 boy, so it was kind of a shame for the boy, not in a sexist way, not trying to push value beliefs, but the child was bored. He was bored because his other friend, who was a boy, who was also in that group, was off today, so he was a little bit disengaged to begin with, but we'll come back to him just now. Basically I just put it to a vote to the children. I says, you have 2 choices here now. Ewan wants you to build either a spaceship or a castle. So talk to your partner, what one do you want and why? And they were like, we want to build a castle, we want to build a castle. It was basically a unanimous vote for a castle, even for the boy. The boy was like, yeah, I'll build a castle, sort of thing. So when I asked them why, they were like, we want to build a castle because princesses, and the other one was like, we want to build a castle because stables for horses, and things like that were coming through. So I was like, okay, that's fine. So I kind of discussed with them, what do you think you'll find in a castle? And they'd be like, you need walls. So I was like, yeah, you need walls. You need rooms. Yeah, you need rooms. Who'll be in there? Like a prince and a princess, or a king and a queen. What else might you need? You might need a garden. What would be in the garden? Stables for horses. Again, just it was a learning of language activity disguised as a Lego activity. The Lego was fairly inconsequential to the final outcome, but what would happen was they would all go and build their models, and that was fine. So they were away. At first they didn't seem too keen when I was discussing it with them before I got them all to sit down. When I said we're building Legos, I think one of the children said, that's boring. I was like, oh, it won't be boring, you wait and see. That's something I'll take into consideration for the next time. If they really weren't enjoying it, then fair enough, but they actually did. They seemed to really like what they were doing, but I'll maybe avoid it in the future if that's going to be the case. Anywho, the children went away. They were building their Lego in pairs. It was really good. They kept on. I was constantly talking to them. Look at what we've built, look at what we've got. I was like, yeah, what's that? It's like, oh, that's a stable. I was like, what's the stable for? The stable's for the horse. Like, what's that? Oh, that's the room for the king and queen to sit in. I was like, so what would you call that? I don't know. What would you call the big chair? I don't know. Is it a throne? Yeah, a throne. So what do you think this might be called? The throne room. Brilliant. Again, just building their vocabulary. I thought that was really good. So when it was finished, I had a look at all the finished products, and that was great. But the child, who seemed a bit disengaged because his friend wasn't there, at first was a bit... He didn't really want to. He kind of sat like this. So once I got them all started, I went and spoke to him. I was like, what's the problem? Insert name here. He was like, he wouldn't speak to me. He was just like, just looking at his feet. And I was like, is there something the matter? He's like, no, nothing wrong. He's like, do you not want to build a castle? So I just hit it in the head. I was like, do you not want to build a castle? And he was like, no. Like, do you not want to build a spaceship either? He was like, no. So at this point I just says, well, you know what Ewan would like you to do? Ewan would like you to take as much as you need for the Lego and build me something really special, and I want you to tell me what it is. And he kind of just went, okay, that's fine. And then that was the end of it, he went away to build something, but at the end he ended up building a tower for the castle for his partner anyway. So I don't know if it was just, maybe he was tired, maybe he was just missing his friend, maybe he thought he wouldn't enjoy it until he started, but he eventually just got into it, and then he built this really impressive tower, and it had a window. I was like, what's the window for? It's so that you can look out for it. It was kind of like a Rapunzel type tower. So I mean, there you go. He did get involved in the end, and it was great, but unfortunately he managed to break his model before I could take a picture. Him and his partner ended up, when I said to stop, they all took it apart. I was like, no. But I have pictures of the other three in the folder also. So once we stopped, I told them to talk to the pair next to them and tell them about their castle. So I was listening to this, I was just hearing keywords being used, like this is for the king and queen, and this is like, so just everything that we had discussed already, just reinforcing it so that they were testing each other. And then I got them to feedback as a group. So when I got them to feedback, here's a couple of quotes I got here. What's this? I say, so what have you made me? He's like, this is a castle, and this is the bit for the horses, and this is where the horse will have his dinner. And he was like, my horse is sad. I was like, okay, let's build on this. Why is your horse sad? And he's like, my horse is sad because it doesn't have anyone to play with. And I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting to know. They're kind of bringing their own emotions into expressing it through Lego, I guess. I don't really know how to describe that, but interesting to see what makes them sad, and they're not scared to share that, whether it's willingly or not. Another one said, this is the boy and the girl that made the tower, and I was like, oh, before you broke your tower, what was happening? He was like, oh, this was the tower and the man was climbing it. So they had this wee Lego man, he was like, it was climbing it. I was like, oh, so why was he climbing it? It's like, he was climbing it to save the princess. So again, they're applying things they've heard in storybooks to their own play. Fair enough. It was good to know that was what inspired them. I asked two little girls what you've made here, and they went, it's Princess Land, and I was trying so hard just not to laugh. I thought that was a brilliant description. I thought that was good to know, and basically they had used different things to build this. They built the walls around the starting block, which I thought was interesting. So they used the starting block as kind of a floor, and then they were building like lots of bits just inside. They weren't the most detailed models in the world, but at the end of the day, the kids had half an hour, and they were using their imaginations, and they're still children, I wasn't expecting grand scaling models of the Golden Gate Bridge, I was really impressed with the results I got. I was really happy, and I found a lot of use in the activity, and I'm hoping the children did too. The final group just said this is a castle, and the way this one child had done it is she had just kind of made the walls first, and then just interesting patterns on the inside. It was almost like a hedge maze. I asked her, is that supposed to be a maze? Is that supposed to be this? I was kind of questioning her about it, but she was really shy. I don't think she's really taken to me as of yet. So she wasn't too keen on answering. So by this point, I was just like, you've all done so well. They were super. They sat. They did what they were told. I was like, you know what? This is fine. We'll pack up here, and we'll go and. I think I went and put a video on with another group. There was another group watching a video. I was like, you know what? You've been so good. You can come and join this other group, and we'll watch the end of this video before lunch. And that was it. Success. The discussion part didn't really work as well. A lot of the children were kind of talking over the top of each other, trying to get their points across. They were all really excited by what they had built by the looks of things, but the discussion kind of fell a little bit flat on its face, but I still managed to hear what I wanted to hear. I heard them using the terminology that I was using. I heard them feeding back to everyone else. They did speak to each other, and God bless them, they did me proud. Really happy with the way it went. So That's pretty much all I'm going to report back to. It was lunch, then story and quiet time, and then a lot of the extra time I was just taking pictures, catching up on paperwork, interacting with the children. Nothing noteworthy really happened, so thank you so much for joining me. I'll be going back to doing these daily now that I'm feeling better, and stick around. Hopefully we'll have some more interesting stories to share. See you then.